Hey guys, welcome back. My name's Mike. Hope you're doing great and having a wonderful day. So in today's video, I want to cover something that Lewis over at the Literary Buffet covered. He did kind of two videos on this, but it's the second one that he did. I've just been thinking about it a lot because I think it's he did a really wonderful job. He is a very smart person, intellectual person. He speaks well. He speaks multiple languages. He's just, the way he thinks, I can relate a lot to him because he can in a very good way, explain what he's trying to get across. And he does a good job at it. I'm not as good at doing that sometimes because to me, I'm more of a black and white, kind of get to the point person. That's why I have a hard time making longer videos. And some people, I'm sure they like shorter videos and they're probably thinking, oh great, I don't got to listen to this guy yap on for an hour. I've made one video that was pretty long, and to me it was too long. But you know, everyone's different. Everyone likes their own stuff. That's not what I'm here to talk about. But so the title of his video was Curating Your Library, a Counterpart to book buying bans. Now, I'm not personally for book buying bans. I've never done it. I've never made a video on it. I mean, I've seen the videos and I get the whole thing. I understand it, but it's never been a thing for me. I mean, there have been times, sure, when I've slowed down buying just because I'm not looking for certain stuff. But anyways, so in the description of this video, I'm going to put down in the bottom, and I'm just, Lewis, I hope you don't mind, I'm just going to copy and paste some of what you put, the points to cover, those 5 points, and then I'll link the video in the description as well, so you can go see the original video to this, because I think he did a great job explaining it. He's going to do way better than me. He's way more articulate than me, and just he thinks differently than me, and I just think he did a great job at this. But I just wanted to kind of make a video of my own covering this and just kind of give my points a little bit. So I'm going to cover the 5 points that he talked about. The first one is curating versus buying on a whim. So curating your library, I think for a lot of people when you're younger, at least I know I was in my 20s, it was like there's so many books I haven't read, right? So many books you want to read, and you're just out there buying and buying and buying and buying and buying, and you get sucked into the media trap of all the new releases and, you know, social media and all that stuff. The older I've gotten, I've slowed down more as far as that kind. And I'm not just buying books to buy books. I'm buying books to curate a library for myself. There's a big difference. Curating is not the same thing as randomly buying books. And if you buy books randomly, I don't care, you know, go for it. Because I still do sometimes, will buy books randomly. That's not the point I'm making, but so what curating is for me, it's the process of researching. It's not a collection of what you've read, your library. It's a collection rather of what you want to read in the future. I have a lot of unread books in my library, and I think that's okay to have that. Now, when I was younger, I didn't think so. I was like, oh, I gotta read every book I have to read it. I can't own it if I haven't read it. I don't think that's the case. I don't think anymore, at least for me, and it shouldn't be the case for anybody else, because you're buying books that you know you want to read, whether you read it today, this year, next year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. You bought it because you want to read it. I wouldn't say I've coined this term, but I'm gonna take it anyways. I've coined this term, retirement library. And that's what I think about when I look at my books. You know, they say, whoever they is, the YouTube, social media. I don't know where it came from, but 1,000 books is a library. I'm not far off from having 1,000 books. But have I read all of those? No. Have I read? So I'll just tell you, I've got 807 books total right now in my library. I haven't read most of those. I mean, I have way more unread than read. I mean, I have a huge chunk that I've read, sure, but I have a lot that I have not, and that's okay, because I know I will read them one day. And Lewis made a good point. You know, a library, your books, they're not like groceries, right? They're not going to expire or go bad. They last forever. They will outlast me. They'll, outlast my kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, so forth. They're going to outlast me by far. So an example, like to have books that you want to read in the future. I've had this book, for example, The Master and Margarita. I've had this for at least 6 years, at least, and I haven't read it. I did start it back then, and maybe longer than that. It might be pushing 10 years. I've had this book. So this is an example of a book that you have in your library. You've had it forever. Lewis showed an example. I think he said something like he had a book for he was pushing 20 years or something like that he thought maybe. And that's okay, because I know eventually I will read this. And actually, I have this on my to-be-read list this year, 2026. So, but it's okay to have books like that have been on your shelf for a long time. Don't feel bad about it. It's your books. You paid for it with your money. It's your life. No one needs to tell you what you can and can't have. So, let's see. Point number 2 is the scope of your library. So the scope is, and I'm reading my notes here, but define the scope of your library. So this goes back to, you can't read everything out there, even though we all want to, but you can't. So 2 points on that. A, what do you like to read? And then B, what you like to read to expand your knowledge of a specific area and genre, maybe. So the first one, what you like to read. We'll pick what you like to read and focus on books like that. That could be one area, a fiction, say. And then the other part could be nonfiction. You buy books of fiction that, for example, here's one. Here's a history book. I got this year. I don't know when I'm going to read this. Probably not this year, because I have so much more to read. But I am interested in this, and I want to expand my mind and my knowledge in this subject. So I bought it, curating it for later, And then it's like, what do you want to read? And then what areas or areas would you want to read? For me, it's like, how do you define that for yourself? How do you scope that out so you're not just out there trying to get everything? Well, for me, I take the bigger picture. So I take all the big genres. For example, classics, mystery crime, translated works, nonfiction, horror, thriller, historical fiction, and then literary fiction. I take those, and then I do my research individually in those subjects. And then I find books inside of those categories, each of what I think I might want. And I'm not going to go buy 100 books for each of those categories, but I'm going to start slow, do my research. Because research is, to me, it's one of the fun parts about it. Because I put a thing out on my community page yesterday about, I'm looking to make a future video regarding translated works, and I'm asking everybody out there that watch my video, that are booktubers, to give me 3 books from the country they live in and where they live in, and throw it up on my community page so I can get it, so I can make a list, because that's me doing research with your help. But that's the fun part about it, I think, is digging in and searching and hunting and finding all these books that you think you might like. So you don't just want to think of what you like right now, you want to look in the future, because remember, you're curating this library. You want to, what do you think you want to read in the future? Again, going back to this, I know in the future I want to read this, whether that's 10 years from now or whatever, but I want to read it. All right, so then we're going to go to point number 3, is research as a fun activity. And it is. We all do it, all of us. Even if you think, I don't like research, you do it. Unless, I mean, you're one of the people, and if you are, great. If it's you, do it. That just go off of every book recommendation that you see on TikTok or Facebook, YouTube, BookTube, whatever, and you just chase all those. Well, if that makes you happy, do what makes you happy. That's okay. I don't care. But research as a fun activity. So you look at, where do you find books? Well, for me, BookTube. Obviously, I get recommendations from BookTube, and I love that. Now, I don't take every recommendation that I get and necessarily buy those. Say I get 5 recommendations from 10 booktubers. Well, I'm going to take each one and write them down, and I'm going to go look into those. And that's part of this research thing, is I'm going to go to Goodreads and look that book up, because Goodreads usually has pretty good blurbs, you know, in there. Maybe I just go to a regular internet search. I get on the internet and look, and I'm just looking at the book. And then the other side of that is, what do you want to research, right? There's so much out there. Well, you got to find what you want to read first. What do you want to read? You know, all the canons from different regions of the world, the Western canon or Eastern, whatever. You know, do you want to read books of a certain language, certain country, right? You find what that is. And then, you know, used bookstores, regular bookstores, online. I do probably 85 to 90% of my book buying online. And, you know, I'm not going to get into the argument of I shouldn't do that. I don't care. That's what I do for me. You Amazon, not a lot, but I do sometimes. There's a website called ABE Books, Abe Books. Wonderful. I've used that for years. Cheap books. I can always find what I'm looking for, you know, so that would be a good suggestion. Let's see. Point number 4 is making your library your own. Goes back to find what you want to read. Make it your own. Not what other people say you should read, right? And this also kind of the video I did the other day about the 26 rules of reading. This kind of sparked this in my mind again, of this video that I'm talking about right now that Lewis made, of that make it your own, right? I'm not super big into, and if you are, that's fine, like self-help and philosophy maybe, because I think now those books have their place, sure, and I'm not knocking those books. I'm not saying they're not good and helpful. No, I'm not saying that at all, but I think that you need to read what you want. Yes, get recommendations from people, sure, but don't just read something because, well, these are the 10 best of this, or this book changed my life, or, you know, these books will change your life, or you have to read these books if X, Y, and Z. No, don't worry about any of that. Yes, do your own research. Look up your own books. If you want to dive off into whatever genre, whatever topic, do it. But be focused about it, you know. Don't just buy every book off of the whim because so-and-so recommended it, or so-and-so says, well, you know, a popular person out there says, well, you should read this. Well, don't do that. Slow down a little bit and do your own research. And also on this is, it's not about, again, it's not about what others like, it's about what you like. So the last point is boundaries. Set boundaries for yourself. Lewis gave 2 great points on these boundaries: physical boundaries and monetary boundaries. To me, boundaries kind of ties also into the research, right? You want to find what you like, whatever genres that is. I think I had like 6 or something written down. I like all those. So those are my boundaries. I stay in those and I look into each of those, right? But it's also physical boundaries. You can't read everything, right? Well, you can't own every book in the world. It's just not feasible, you know. You got to look at, like, how many books can you physically own wherever you live, whether you live in a house, apartment, whatever. Do you have the space, right? You can't be a hoarder of books. I mean, you can, sure, do it. I don't care. But when we see you on that Hoarders TV show, you know, I'm kidding, of course, but, you know, realistically, you don't want to have books everywhere where they're like lined up on your walls and you're trying to squeeze through and they're about to fall over and smash you, you know. So just be realistic with that. And then the second point is monetary boundaries. Have a budget, be mindful, don't overspend. And overspend means something different to everybody. Every single one of us is in a different space financially. I'm not going to try to tell you what to spend, how to spend it. I'm not a money guru. I'm not giving you any tips or tricks. I don't care. You do whatever you want. But if it goes beyond your budget, then it's overconsumption. And Lewis hit on that point of overconsumption, right? Because it's all over TikTok, BookTube, YouTube about overconsumption of the book and the consumerism side of it. Yes, there is. That is true. But don't fall into that. You know, it's like any other habit. Don't overconsume, right? Whatever that is. We just happen to be talking about books right now, but, you know, don't overconsume. If you are spending so much money on books that it is a detriment to your life, your health, your living status, whatever, reevaluate it, you know. Also, he made a point of, like, be mindful about other people that live with you. Yeah, you know, I have a wife and daughter. Luckily, my wife does not care. She encourages my habit. You know, she doesn't mind it. I have a lot of books. She doesn't care but she's also a avid reader. She actually reads way more than I do. I am more of a collector than I'm a reader too. I read a lot, but I like the collecting side of it. You know, the physical collecting side too. You know, you want to be mindful of maybe people you live with. They don't want books everywhere. They don't want to live in a hoarder home of books, you know. But so also, this is an example of how I cannot make long videos because I'm done. I've hit all my points. So I don't know if this was any help to you. Again, I'm not as well spoken as Lewis. I'm not as smart and as intelligent and able to write things down like he is and get it out. I think he did a great job. So please check his video out. And like I said, I'll leave a link and everything in there. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.